Title: The Dragon in the House, a true horror story. Part 1: The Arrival. The Watkins family had always dreamed of living in a peaceful, rural town. So when they found a beautiful old house nestled in the countryside of North Carolina, just outside of Asheville, it felt like a dream come true. The house, built in the early 1900s, had character, aged brick, overgrown ivy creeping along the walls, and a vast backyard that stretched into dense woods. John and Maria Watkins moved in with their 2 children, Emily and Noah, and their golden retriever Max. The first few days were blissful. The children ran through the fields, Max barking happily at squirrels, and Maria started decorating their new home. But as the sun set behind the Blue Ridge Mountains, a strange sense of unease settled over them. The house, while charming, seemed to exhale a heavy air of dread. One night, as John was unpacking boxes in the basement, he noticed something odd. A large hole in the wall near the floor, hidden behind some old, dusty furniture. The hole was dark and deep, leading somewhere beneath the house. Shrugging it off as just part of the old foundation, he went to bed, unaware that this would be the beginning of their nightmare. Part 2: The First Sighting. It started with small signs. Maria was the first to notice that Max had become strangely quiet. He would sit for hours in front of the basement door, growling low, ears pinned back, and his body tense. One afternoon, as Maria was preparing dinner, Emily came running into the kitchen, pale and shaking. "Mom, there's something in my room," she cried, pointing upstairs. Maria rushed to her daughter's bedroom and stopped cold in the doorway. Coiled up near the window was a massive snake, at least 10 feet long, its scales dark green with patches of yellow that shimmered like armor in the setting sun. The snake was unlike anything Maria had ever seen. Its body was thick, muscular, and it hissed, revealing fangs as long as her fingers. It was no ordinary snake. It looked more like something out of a myth. John rushed in with a shovel, trying to scare the snake away, but before he could strike, it slithered away faster than any creature its size should be able to, disappearing into the shadows of the house. They searched the entire home, but found no trace of it. That night, sleep escaped them as they felt the weight of something watching from the dark corners of their new home. Part 3: The Unseen Terror. Days turned into weeks, and the Watkins family became prisoners in their own home. Every time they thought they were safe, the snake, or dragon, as Noah had started calling it, would appear. Sometimes in the attic, other times in the basement, or even lurking in the backyard. Always watching, always waiting. The children were terrified. Emily refused to sleep in her room, and Noah had nightmares of being wrapped in the creature's coils. Maria and John tried to stay strong, but they too felt the crushing fear of the unknown beast lurking in their home. They contacted animal control, pest services, even local herpetologists, but no one could help. The snake was elusive, vanishing whenever anyone else was around, leaving only scratch marks on the walls and an overpowering musky odor in its wake. Their peaceful countryside escape had become a prison, and the beast, this living nightmare, had claimed their home. Part 4: The Discovery. John became obsessed with the snake. He started researching local folklore and talking to neighbors, hoping for some clue. It was during one of these conversations with an elderly man, Mr. Harrison, that John learned of the legend. "This place," Mr. Harrison whispered, "has a history. The locals call it the Serpent of Asheville. Some say it's not just a snake, but something ancient, something that's been here long before the town was founded. There are stories about it from the Cherokee people, long before we settled here. They say it's a guardian of the land, but it's also a curse." John's blood ran cold. Could this creature be something more than just a freak of nature? He raced home, determined to find answers. He started ripping through walls, tearing up floorboards, and finally, in the basement, behind that same hole he had first seen weeks ago, he found it a massive nest. The walls were covered in shed skin, and in the center lay bones, animal bones, and disturbingly, something that looked all too human. Part 5: The Confrontation. That night, the family decided they couldn't stay any longer. They packed their bags, ready to leave their cursed home behind. But the snake had other plans. As they were loading the car, the ground beneath them seemed to tremble, and out of the darkness, it came, larger than they had ever seen before. The creature slithered out from the woods, its body glistening under the moonlight, now easily over 15 feet long. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural intelligence, and its tongue flicked menacingly as it blocked their escape. John grabbed a torch from the garage and held it between them and the snake, but the beast didn't flinch. It lunged toward them, and in a desperate move, John threw the torch into the nest in the basement. Flames erupted, lighting up the house, and the creature let out an ear-piercing hiss. For the first time, it retreated, disappearing into the woods as the fire consumed the house. Part 6. The Aftermath. The fire department arrived just in time to save the family, but their house was gone. Investigators found the remnants of the snake's nest, confirming that something large had been living beneath the house, but no one could explain what it was. The Watkins family moved into a small apartment in Asheville, far from the woods and the mountains. For weeks after, John had nightmares about the snake. He couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't gone, just waiting, lurking in the shadows. The locals avoided the subject, brushing off the incident as just another fire. But John knew better. He had seen the serpent, and it was no ordinary animal. It was something ancient, something evil. Part 7. The Return. Years later, the Watkins family tried to move on with their lives. The children grew up, and John and Maria tried to put the nightmare behind them. But one summer evening, as they walked through a park in downtown Asheville, they heard a familiar hiss. Turning slowly, John saw a pair of glowing eyes watching from the tree-line. It was back. The serpent hadn't just claimed their home. It had claimed them. The end.